Well, good morning, and welcome back to our pilgrimage through the summer and our journey through the summer with the Institute for Priestly Formation. Today is day 30 here at IPF, and of course, across the world, we celebrate the birth of St. John the Baptist. Day 30 here at IPF, not only do we have the two programs that have been here for the last several weeks, but today we welcome a third program. We welcome 9 priests and 9 seminarians, 18 retreatants for the 30-day retreat. Those men arrive on campus later this afternoon. We'll have some welcome and orientation for them this evening. And then tomorrow, we will begin a 3-day orientation process, what we call the disposition days, to dispose them, to get them ready for the beauty of the silence, which begins on Friday night. The priest in the Seminar for Seminary Spiritual Direction will learn more about the do's and don'ts, the practical things that you really want to know about spiritual direction, especially in the seminary. And then, of course, the seminarians in the 10-week summer program continue their morning class that will focus on what to do and what not to do in spiritual desolation, so that the men are really disposed to choosing God even when he seems far away. And in the afternoon, they will have some time to serve the Archdiocese of Omaha. For these last 6 weeks of the summer, they will spend Tuesday and Thursday afternoons in pastoral ministry in sites across the Archdiocese of Omaha, not only serving the Archdiocese of Omaha, but learning how to be disposed to communion with God, to stay in communion with God in the midst of being active and busy. So there's a lot going on campus today, a lot happening here at IPF, and I think it all comes together under the word intentional. Let's unpack that a little bit. Obviously, the 18 retreatants here for the 30-day retreat have a desire for God. And their desire for God has led them to join us for the 30-day retreat. But their desire for God isn't something that they simply stayed with spontaneously. They chose to come here, and they chose to come here for 30 days of silence. They made it an intentional decision to be present not only to their desire, but they made it an intentional decision to choose something that they know is going to lead them into communion with God. And they were intentional about choosing to be silent. The men in the seminarians program are going to learn more about how to choose God, how to choose the good, even in the midst of spiritual desolation when God seems far away. Those are the moments when it's easiest for us to not choose the good because we just don't feel, you might say, close to God. And we're going to dispose the men, we're going to encourage the men today to be intentional about holiness, even when God seems far away, to be intentional about doing the right thing when God seems like he's not as close to them as in other times. And of course, being intentional about being with the Lord in pastoral ministry, and all of that is present to them today. We're going to encourage the men that, hey, as a priest, you're going to be busy. As a priest, you're going to get distracted. As a priest, they're going to have so many things kind of pulling at you, that the only way that a priest is going to make it, the only way a priest is going to be able to choose silence and be comfortable in silence is if he is intentional about doing so. And so if you were at IPF, we would talk to you today about being intentional about your spiritual life. You know, yesterday we talked about just the distractions that are out there and all the things that threaten our being present to the present moment, whether it's just the pace that we live in life, whether it's the many physical distractions that we have so easily availed to us, the internet, smartphones, the texting, tweeting, Facebook, social media, all those things that might threaten our being present to the present moment and present to people and to God in the midst of our daily life. The invitation therein is for us to learn how to be silent, to choose silence for the sake of silence, and to choose to be more recollected, to be more comfortable at being more at home with ourselves. That's not just going to happen. we have to be intentional about that. You have to be intentional. I have to be intentional about choosing the things that are going to be countercultural and that are going to set me up for success in my spiritual life. You wouldn't be listening to this if you didn't have a desire for God. You want God. That's why you're listening. However, we can't just want God when it's easy. We can't just want God when we feel that. And we can't just want God whenever the circumstances of life are really set up for that. We have to be intentional about choosing God and choosing the good throughout our day and at every moment of our life. You and I have to be intentional about choosing God when we don't want to. And just as we're talking to the men about doing that in spiritual desolation, you and I, if you were at IPF, we'd remind you that when God does not seem present, when he doesn't seem like he's talking to you, when it doesn't seem like prayer is vibrant or alive, we have to be intentional about choosing God then. The men who are here for the 30-day retreat, they're carving out time for God. They made choices, they made sacrifices so that they could be with God. And you and I, if you were at IPF, we would talk to you about the same thing, about making intentional decisions, sacrificing things that would prevent us from having the time to spend with God. So it really comes down to not do we want the Lord, but how much do we want the Lord? Do we want God enough to want him more than anything else? Do we want God enough to be intentional in our spiritual life? That means perhaps making choices that are different than the rest of America. That means making choices that are different than perhaps the other people who are your age and doing the things that they're doing. If you and I want the Lord, we have to want him, and we have to be intentional about that. So the encouragement today, just simply today, I encourage you to pray with your desire. And is your desire for God and his desire for you enough for us to choose, for us to be intentional about choosing God? God bless you.